For Krama Media's Polity, I'm Saneh Dlamini. She is known as the Queen of the Free State from her first memoir, Jennifer Friedman. She is now joining me today to discuss her second book titled The Messiah's Dream Machine. So Jennifer, your new book is being described as a sequel to your memoir, Queen of the Free State, which was about growing up in the Free State. Tell us about how the two books fit together.
Well, this Messiah's Dream Machine picks up from where I left off in the Queen of the Free State, where I was going to be sent to boarding school. And this one starts with me leaving home and getting on the train and going to boarding school. And then it sort of continues, you know, with me growing up. And
you were not happy about going to a boarding school in Cape Town, but to say your mom was like a boss, you wouldn't say no. Why were you not happy with going to a boarding school?
Well, you know, I'd grown up with the same kids at school. We'd been in the same class, all of us, from sub A. I don't know what you call it today, but it was sub A in grade 1. And we'd been together every year up to, well, they would have been year 10 then, I suppose. They were my friends. I didn't want to leave them, and it was my home that I was going to have to leave. I was going to have to leave the people who worked in our home, who I'd known all my life, and my dog, Sandy. I was horrified because my mother, in fact, had many years before, I'd gone to the station with her after I had Sandy, the first one, and then he died. And so they ordered another one, this puppy, and we went to the station to fetch him. And at the station, there were these two little kids crying and holding on to their mother's skirt. And they were being sent off to boarding school. And my mother turned around, she said, she'll never send me to boarding school, she promises. Sy het gelieg. It was not true, and she, I felt she let me down because she'd always said, you know, she'd gone to boarding school during the war and she'd hated it. Why would she send me away?
You also had a Sotho name, Paul. Do you still use it, and how were you given this name?
When I was born, there was a lady, Mata Chabalala and Isak Muda, and they worked for my parents before I think they even got married. Yeah, and when I was born, they gave me we all had Sotho names. My sisters were given Sotho names, and my parents were given Sotho names, but I was the firstborn, so I was the gift of God, from God, quite right. And and so my mother was Mampo, and my father was Pampo, and that's what they called me, or forever, you know, yeah.
What do you remember when you arrived in Cape Town which made you feel different? And tell us about the scary incident on the train which you didn't tell your mom.
Oh yeah, that was horrible. I can remember. Well, the incident was my mother and I were on this train on the way to Cape Town, and we were in a compartment and I needed to go to the bathroom. So, you know, the train sways on the tracks, and the toilet, whatever, it's always right at the very end of the carriage. And there was a man standing all the way down near the toilet, and he was kind of leaning against the railing and he was looking out. And when he saw me, he sort of turned around and he looked me up and down. And he made this really sort of suggestive, it was horrible. And I wanted to get past. And he, you know, first give me a kiss girly kind of thing, and then, you know, I let you go past. And I was really an innocent kid. I mean, I didn't know about anything. All I knew was he was in the way, I wanted to get past. And I remember he was overweight, and he was wearing this sort of, I don't know, kind of nylon jersey, and I punched him. And I remember the feel of my fist sort of going, how hard I could have punched him, I'm sure not, but just like, get out of my way, kind of, leave me alone. what are they, voetzak jou vark or something. I was just, and I knew, I mean, I rushed past and I just had this feeling it obviously wasn't the right thing to do to a kid. And I didn't tell my mother because my mother kind of overreacted to things like that. She would have been really angry. So I just kept it quiet. But it was, I never forgot it.
And then your first impression when you first saw Cape Town?
Well, I'd been to Cape Town before because we used to go there on holiday. But I suppose that time it must have been really different for me because I suppose I sort of had the sense of no return. It was kind of a new beginning, you know. This was supposed to be my new home or place that I was going to have to go and stay. I felt differently about it all. And I wasn't happy about going. I really wasn't.
I was smiling a lot when I read chapter 10 when your uncle, Leslie, first met Alan for the first time. Can you tell us about your uncle?
My uncle was an absolutely irascible, impatient, wonderful man. I loved him. He had no patience whatsoever. If you didn't agree with what you said or did, or if you'd be naughty, there was just no question about it. And you just kind of you never misbehaved with Uncle Leslie. But he was really wonderful, and he gave me a lot of freedom on the farm. I could go and do whatever I wanted to do. We had a really good relationship. He accepted me for who I was. Never tried to change me or tell me, you know, to behave. So my mother and father sort of behave, be good. And when I phoned to tell him that I was going to get married, no chance. He first has to vet Alan to see that, you know, he was suitable for me. It was very sweet. And I wanted Alan to meet him, so I took him down to the farm, and it was an experience. It was an experience because it was the middle of winter, and you know the Free State gets really, really cold. And Alan didn't really feel the cold, and I offered him this hot water bottle, and I said, well, take a hot water bottle. They had put him in the lounge, and there were these yellow wood strip floors, and they creaked like anything, and I knew why they'd done it, just so that there couldn't be any kind of movement in the night. So I said to him, he said to me, oh, well, if he gets cold, he'll just creep down the passage. I said, Uncle Leslie sleeps with one ear open, both ears open. Don't do it because we'll both get into trouble. I said, you can't. I'll give you a hot water. No, he doesn't need the hot water bottle. Anyway, he nearly froze to death that night. But that night, my uncle, after dinner, he came to me and he said, I just want to give you something. I kept the thing he gave me 4 years, 20 years, until finally it just sort of perished, and and somewhere along the line I must have lost it, a million years. He was very shy, my Uncle Leslie, really, and he was not, and never discussed things like sex. So he hold out my hand and he put something in the palm of my hand, and it's a little green rubber ring. Teeny and quite thick, and I look at this and I recognize it, and I said to him, what do you want me to do with this? He said, if he tries any funny business, use it. What it was a rubber ring that they put on lamb's tails to make them drop off, but you need a special tool in order to stretch it to get the little lamb's tail in. He meant well. That's all I can say. But it was and Alan was horrified. He was a city boy, you know. He didn't know about these things. So.
What else will the readers be getting from reading this book without giving too much?
I would hope that people would read the stories and, I suppose, see life the way it was for a teenager. The difference that I was experiencing, having come from the country, moving to Johannesburg, and being introduced to, I suppose, a more sophisticated way of life and dealing with people and failing miserably. And I never improved, I've got to tell you. It just kind of never sat right with me. And I suppose also that, you know, as you progress through the book, that I think that basically it's a love story, and it's a story of retribution maybe, and redemption, and saying goodbye to various people, because a lot of those characters in the Messiah's Dream Machine do appear in Queen of the Free State, and they were important to me, those people. And I would hope that they would see the way that I felt about them, and when they kind of basically left our lives and their lives, that it wasn't always necessarily a very sad thing, like my uncle, my Uncle John, great Uncle John, for example. When I wrote that story, I was laughing so hard I could hardly see to type. It's, I suppose, and it's also about leave-taking, because leaving a country and about immigration and all sorts of things like that. It's there are a lot. I suppose that there are many different themes in the book that one could sort of follow through.
And last time when I asked you this question about writing another book, you were like, yes, I'm writing already. So is it likely that we will get another book after this one? Well,
again, I mean, I am writing another one. And this one's, I suppose, got more about flying and that sort of, you know. Yeah, it depends on publishers, and it depends on all sorts of things. But yeah, I'm busy. That's what I do, you know. It's got to keep going. So there are always stories, lots of stories.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That was author Jennifer Friedman speaking to Polity about her memoir titled The Messiah's Dream Machine.